There we go. Very good. We can't hear you, Adam, but it started, so that's good.
I was saying, Pam had a comment though, I know. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw Pam that you did. Should we start reading, and is there another chance for her to join in with what Wally was saying, or do we just take care of that right now, Matt, with Pam thoughts while they're still there?
Why don't we just continue with the train of thought since we're
Yeah, let me just start the meeting and then you'll go first. That'd be great. Okay, welcome everyone. It's our Indigent Defense Commission meeting, June 6, 2024. We're getting started officially at 2:13, just as soon as we had a quorum. And let's just quickly introduce, and then Pam is going to not forget what she was going to say. So, right, Pam? But let's go around and sometimes we don't always introduce ourselves, but let's do that this time. Aaron, go ahead.
Hi, Aaron McKnight. I'm Deputy City Attorney for Midvale City, and I'm representing the Utah League of Cities and Towns on the commission. This will be my first round of reviewing grants, so excited to learn and contribute, and yeah.
We're so glad to have you. And when I was brand new, I also came in just in time to review grants. So thank you so much for jumping right in. So happy to have you from the league.
Thank you.
All right, and we have Representative Clancy, and this is my first time to really be in a meeting with you. Introduce yourself, please.
There, can you hear me okay? Is our sound on?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Representative Clancy. I'm from Provo, and I'm one of the legislative appointments on the commission, and happy to be here and help. I love working with Matt Barraza and Adam at the legislature. I always look over and see what their facial expressions are, and that usually helps me. But no, happy to be here. Thanks for putting this together.
Thank you. And you're another one who's newer to the group and jumping in just a time to help us with the grant discussions. Thank you for your service in the legislature, and I think you also have experience in the criminal justice realm, right, with what you do?
Yes, I'm a police officer in Provo City. In
Provo City. Yeah, super valuable to have you here. Thank you. All right, Wally.
Wally Bugden. I'm an attorney in private practice. I started my career as a public defender for 4.5 years, but I've been in private practice forever, for 40 years.
Thank you, Wally. Okay, and Rich.
I'm Rich Morrow. I'm the Executive Director of the Salt Lake Legal Defender Association.
Thank you. Casey.
Casey Hopes, Commissioner Carbon County.
Yes. Michael.
I'm Michael Drexel. I'm the Assistant State Court Administrator. If I'd known Representative Clancy was going to be in the IDC offices, I probably would have made my way down there. It's nice to see you on the commission, Representative.
Yeah, gosh. That's a good thought. We could have all come. I could have even come today, but have been late for my next meeting. But yeah, we do try to get together. We should definitely get together sometime before some people will leave, like Commissioner Hopes this year, after this year. Okay, Leslie.
Hi, I'm Leslie Howard, and I'm the data analyst for the IDC.
Yes, Pam.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pam Vickery. I am the Executive Director of Utah Juvenile Defender Attorneys, and so my office specializes in delinquency defense.
Yes. Adam.
And Pam is a troublemaker.
Well, she's pretty darn smart and not shy. I know that. She lives close to me. We should get together, Pam. Yeah, I think we come a little bit from the same mold. All right, Adam.
I'm the Assistant Director for the Indigent Defense Commission.
Thank you. I'm Commissioner Lorene Kamalu, a Davis County Commissioner. So two of us are appointed by the Utah Association of Counties, Commissioner Hopes and I. And then I think we just got Michael Zimmerman. Michael, you want to introduce yourself? You're our final one. And you're muted right now. Well, when someone can't speak about themselves, then we can all speak about them. But anyway, what I know is that Michael Zimmerman is a long time. Is he one of the originals? I feel like, Matt, one of the original, yeah, IDC commissioners. There's a few who are original and have all this institutional knowledge and helped really get this going for the state of Utah. And he is, I don't know if Michael's really, is he retired? But he's a judge, I know that. Is he retired? I don't know. Yeah, okay, Michael, the other Michael says yes, but so glad he's still working with us. Welcome, Michael. Hopefully we can hear you at some point, because right now, no video, and it just shows you're muted. Okay,
Justice Zimmerman's a former justice of the Utah Supreme Court and has had a robust appellate practice for many years as well. So,
oh, see, wow. Yeah, all I've known is that he has a lot of experience. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're gonna get going right up. Oh, Pam, go ahead and share, Pam, while we're still on that train of discussion about managing defenders and their responsibilities.
Well, it sounds like maybe Matt's going to talk about it a little bit, but I appreciated what Wally was saying, because we did have the GALT assessment and it talked about managing defenders, and I think that it's kind of raised some interesting questions about, you know, what everyone's talking about, like where is that producing what we were hoping it would produce, and where is it falling short, and then if it is falling short in certain areas, how can we best address those things? Because I think the assessment did point out that there was some real deficiencies in those areas. And I think a lot of it has to do with how much people feel like they can do in managing contractors versus employees. And I think that we really need to address that in order to say that we've got to be able to say, if you're going to be a managing defender, you have to have the capacity to manage, right? And so anyway, I appreciate everybody talking about that, because I think it's an important issue, and I think the assessment brought up some concerns that we need to address with regards to it.
Thank you, Pam. Yes. All right, so let's see. First off are the minutes that we need to have approved. And Katrina, looks like I'm just looking at the agenda. I didn't pull up the various ones. Which are the ones that we are approving today?
April and March meetings.
Sorry, what did you say? March?
March and April.
March and April. Okay. Yeah, I feel like I read those when they first came to me. And so I'm happy to make a motion to approve the March minutes. There's a second.
Seconded.
Second by Wally. Okay, and it's maybe easiest. Well, all in favor, just go ahead and say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
And I see hands. Good job. Are there any opposed? Seeing something needs to be fixed? All right, good. And then the April. I will move approval of the April minutes.
And I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Hopes again. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Good. See it. Good job. Okay. Any opposed? Seeing something to be fixed? Okay. Very good. Katrina, thank you for those. So we're going to get right to it. And we do know that Commissioner Rich Morrow will have to leave for a little bit at 3. So we're going to try to go through as much as we can. And Matt Barraza, go ahead and kick us off with the fiscal year 25 grant applications review.
Right. All right, is that showing up?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Step outside, that's what it looks like right now, if you look to the east a little bit.
Yeah, so pretty.
Well, I'll get right to it. Thank you, everyone who was able to review some of the applications. I think that we've been able to put this together in a way that'll be really easy to digest in the event that you didn't get a chance to look at those. First, I did want to highlight, as I mentioned, some of the activity on the local level. Counties across the state have really stepped up their contribution to funding indigent defense. We've seen an increase over this past year of over $8 million throughout the state towards indigent defense budgets on the county level. And almost all of that, if not all of that, has gone towards compensation increases for the defenders. And so you can see here the percent increases from last year to this year. And as I was mentioning, I think that there's a really strong correlation between these increases and the managing defender in each of those counties, or managing defenders in the case of Salt Lake County. So we've seen, and also this is, I think, a response to those significant increases that the AG's office received from the legislature last year. And so we're seeing the counties stepping up and really meeting the demand there and trying to take care of their defenders. Still have a lot of room to grow. You can see that there's still many counties who are not on that list who we want to help to make things fair and equitable. Unfortunately, this is not the year that we can do that, but that's definitely something that is going to remain on our radar and as we advocate for more funding from the legislature. Before we get into the grants, I just wanted to review the tiers that we have established to rank the requests as they come in. Tier 1 is for renewals of prior grants. Tier 2 is for managing defender capacity increases, so new management coming in or new administration help for a managing defender. Tier 3 is for attorney positions, new attorney positions that have been identified and recommended by IDC staff. Tier 4 is for other staff positions that were recommended by the IDC. And then Tier 5 is for all other requests. Last year, we awarded 7.3, almost 7.4 million in grants throughout the state. As you all know, we did have a deficit from the legislature where certain, some one-time funding was not renewed that we had received last year. And so in taking a look at how to handle that, we do have some non-lapsing funds that we are wanting to use to fund and make up for that deficit. Here are the tiers on the requests that we received this year. And here is our recommendation. I'll start off with that. We do have enough funds in our non-lapsing funds to make up for the budget shortfall and a little bit left over to fund Tier 2 request as well. So that's what we're recommending. We'll go through these requests individually though, so that you all have the opportunity to look at that. And you'll see that there is an asterisk there. There is one caveat on the recommendation that I'll get into later and we'll be asking for the commission to weigh in on. So this is the Beaver Iron Cane regionalization project. The blue there is all renewal requests. They did request some compensation increase for their managing defender and administrative assistant. Over the past few years, we have not granted any compensation increases, and that will be our posture or recommendation this year as well, just because we don't have that increase in funding that would allow for that. This is Box Elder and Cache regionalization project. Again, they are just asking for renewals. They're not asking for any new funding. The darker blue highlights is just to indicate grants that were awarded last year. So those are newer grants that were awarded with that ongoing funding, or I'm sorry, that one-time funding that will be using our non-lapsing funding to renew. So we wanted to highlight those. We're going to keep track of those going forward as well. The carbon price project, again, no new funding requests or requesting renewals. Davis County. So this is one of the funding requests that we really struggled with internally. We had a very spirited discussion about this and coming up with our recommendations, and didn't come to a strong consensus. And so we wanted to put this to the commission, and I think we'll probably have a similar, or maybe not, maybe it will be clear to the commission what you want to do. But with Davis County last year, they had received a specialty contract. Actually, it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they received a specialty contract for complex cases, so first-degree felonies and minimum mandatory cases. That was awarded at $150,000. It was a $150,000 grant. It is a hourly grant, so it's billed hourly amongst the two contractors that share that grant. And since it was awarded, they have not ever reached that upper spending limit of $150,000. In fact, it's been below the $100,000. And so what Davis County is requesting is that $50,000 that they've never really tapped into on that grant be reallocated in order to give some compensation increases to some existing contractors. So the difficulty in this, in one regard, it's pretty straightforward in that I just said a slide or two ago, we have not given compensation increases for several years, and we don't intend to do that now. The only thing that really makes this a little more complicated is the fact that that was a grant award that was previously awarded, so it's money that was already awarded to that system. So I think right now I'd like to pause and just open it up for discussion and see what the commission thinks about that request.
So this is Wally. I have two immediate thoughts about that. So the fact that we allocated the money on a prior occasion 2 years ago, we allocated it for a specific purpose. And that specific purpose, they didn't need that much money. I mean, it was nice that, I have no problem with them having asked for that money, but it was for this purpose. We're going to do this with the money. And then they didn't need that much money. So that leftover $50,000 should just remain in our budget, it seems to me, unless we decide that there is a legitimate purpose to repurpose that money that was allocated 2 years ago. And the fact that they want to use it to increase their salaries for the contract employees, I understand why they're asking for that. Everybody wants to make more money, but I'm not sure if it really works. I mean, it's kind of like, I'm not suggesting there's anything fraudulent about it, but at least in the world of securities fraud and other kinds of fraud, if you say that you're going to use the money for purpose A and you use the money for purpose B, now they are asking for us to approve it, but that traditionally would be fraud, that you are not allowed to use the money for a different purpose. So they are asking our permission, but my initial reaction is to say, if we're not giving salary increases, the fact that we previously allocated that money for purpose A, that doesn't authorize, to me, it doesn't carry over to give authorization to use that money for salary increases for the contract employees. And then the other issue across the board, not just with Davis County, but anyone with any county that's asking for more money to increase the salaries of their contract employees, just remember that these are not full-time employees or not full-time public defenders. And in Davis County, they're not full-time. They have private practice. They have zealously defended their right to have private practices, not be full-time IDC people or public defenders. So my initial reaction is no.
Thank you, Wally. And Michael Zimmerman is going to put put his comments in the chat because his audio and video aren't working, but he can hear us just fine and see us. He just says, I agree with Wally. I would be recusing myself from this anyway, since it's Davis County, but that's I think a logical and fair way to look at it, Wally.
Oh, go ahead.
And looks like Pam has her hand up.
Oh, I just was gonna say, I mean, I've really been torn about this as well. I've talked with folks in Davis and I know what's going on. And my initial response was, well, we want people to get paid what they're worth and things like that. But I think that I am really struggling with where we're saying no to compensation raises for other people to then turn and use that money, like Wally is saying, I hadn't even thought originally about it being allocated for a different purpose until just very, very recently when in reviewing everything else that it kind of was like, oh, wait a second, I hadn't thought that part through. And so I think that gives me some real heartburn. And I think it's hard because, you know, I don't want to compare counties to counties, but I know like for Rich and I, our count, we do have trial funded people through the IDC, and our counties did make up the difference in the pay structure when we got pay raises and things like that. And so and have had to do that because we haven't been approving pay raises through IDC budgets and stuff like that. So I feel very torn by this, and I feel bad about that because I've previously been talking with folks and thinking it through and stuff. But like I said, the allocation of the money and then thinking through the approach in general about pay raises, it makes it really difficult to not be like super cautious about that.
Mm-hmm. And Rich?
I tend to agree with Wally. I think the money's been allocated for a specific purpose. You know, and I know we've done this before, and it's given me some degree of reservation, even though I think I understand the purpose behind having a complicated trial team, if you will, a complicated case compensation plan. But it's given me a little bit of pause because I think within the structure of a public defender agency, I'm hopeful that you can develop the expertise to do these kinds of cases within the structure itself. I mean, we're hiring kind of outside contractor people to come in to do these cases on an hourly basis. And I understand the purpose behind it, but it also raises a more important question for me, and that is, what is the expertise that's being developed? Let's use Davis County as an example. What expertise is developed internally within the office to be able to take on these cases? And if it does create kind of a workload issue for the full-time defenders or the people that are mostly doing this sort of work, what does that look like, and how can we help as an IDC? It gives me some pause because certainly taking money that's earmarked for purpose A and then repurposing it for purpose B, I think is a problem for me, but it also raises that broader question in my mind.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't really know the answer to that here, but Michael.
I was just going to say, if this had come to us as a request, as they're now currently structuring it back in the day, before it was money that was allocated to their program, we would have declined to award that for that purpose at that point in time, right? And so it's strange to me to say post-allocation that somehow changes the dynamic here. We're not supportive, I think, as a commission, haven't been, of using money for that purpose. And so it seems to me like the appropriate action would be to claw back money that wasn't used for the intended purpose and then put it back into the pool for all available entities to have an opportunity to kind of bring forward their best ideas that we are supportive of as a commission and use it for that in that way instead.
Thank you. And I just know, since I'm a commissioner, Davis County Commissioner, yeah, you saw that there was money, additional money that from the county general fund that was allocated this year. But I also know, and I bet we all remember, there were additional attorneys brought on during, well, and kind of within the after effects of the pandemic that federal money has been able to cover. And that I think there's multiple jurisdictions where, you know, if we could just cover some of these additional people that are, we're now at this new normal where there's that many more cases, it's not going back down, and there's complex, you know, a lot of complexity to cases now. Anyway, so if they could start all over, my guess would be that they would just love to just have more money for the regular people doing the work. More, you know, cover those people that money's going away now after this year. So any other little thought anybody has? And it sounds like, well, that's a good question, Matt. Maybe Rich's question can be brought up with Todd, and you can learn more about that. I don't know that.
Well, I do have some thoughts about that. As I mentioned, I was at doing a CLE for Davis County yesterday and was struck by how seasoned the group of attorneys there was for the most part. I mean, it was kind of skewed a little bit older than what I was expecting as far as the attorneys. So I think, and I know that Todd, the managing defender there, is very grateful to have the complex specialty contracts. He likes it a lot, and I think his attorneys like having that a lot because, you know, if you do have a demanding caseload and then you have a minimum mandatory added to the mix, that can be, you know, it's just one case, but it takes up a lot of your time. And so I think that they are able to ease their workload by having that release valve for when those cases come through. So I know that they like that a lot. And I don't know, I think Weber County might be or Davis County might be a little bit unique in the demographic of their defenders. You know, I don't know that that would necessarily be the case in some of the other counties where you might have some younger attorneys doing the work.
Yeah, you know what, you're right. I do see all of those contract attorneys when we get together for those CLEs, and you know, even though not everyone has this sort of a model anymore, where there's a core staff that runs that office, very small staff that runs that office, and Todd with all his experience managing, they actually really like he does, and the contract people who contracted like it, and the county still thinks that there's a lot of good work that gets done because they have so much good experience, right? I hear both Troy Rawlings and Todd Utzinger talk a lot about the quality of the people they have working in their offices, which is great, you know, people who have a lot of experience. Rich.
Yeah, no, you know, for those of you that don't know, the American Bar Association, in conjunction with the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers and the National Association of Public Defenders, have issued a workload report. And this raises the bigger question. I think the way Matt described it makes a lot of sense. And it sort of, in my mind, creates what is the responsibility of the IDC when public defender workloads exceed the standards that are set. And Matt described it, I think, in a way that is persuasive to me, and that is, when you've reached your terminal limit, it's nice to have this. But the question then becomes, is there a responsibility on the IDC's part? I mean, this is a little bit of a different conversation than how we should earmark this money today, but it's a really nice safety valve to have, because I envision a time when we as a commission will be discussing application of these workload standards, and lawyers and systems that will be coming to us and saying, I have too many cases, I need a safety valve. I mean, the idea behind it, I think, is a good idea in terms of how we look at it, but it does raise a broader question. I mean, that money is earmarked for that purpose, obviously, but I just wanted to throw that out there, even though that's not the main topic of discussion today.
Thank you. Well, I guess you've gotten a good amount of feedback, Matt.
I think so. I think so. Well, let's continue then. Here is let me just make sure I got that right. Good. The Outer County project that Juab, Millard, and San oh no, Wasatch, now. They are asking for renewals. They did request a additional attorney for Juab County, based, good segue, Rich, based on the ABA standards. And so that was their basis for requesting an additional attorney. We have yet to apply those standards statewide. And so that's why that attorney request is, we're considering that a tier 5 request rather than something that we would be recommending for everybody. Same approach here with Juab. Renewals aside from an additional attorney request based on the ABA standards.
You mean Millard? Oh yeah, the Millard one. It's like the Juab one. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And then Wasatch, we have a similar request, a reallocation request, and there's really nothing to distinguish this from the Davis County question. They had been awarded a grant last year for a part-time attorney to help with the caseload there. What they're asking to do is they were able to fill that, but could only fill it with somebody who is able to work a fraction of the time that the contract was envisioned. And so they were wanting to reallocate the value of that contract amongst the other existing contract holders.
Thank you. Representative Clancy.
Yeah, I just had a question for Matt for the drug court and the parental defense line items. Do you know off the top of your head what the workload standard is for the ABA?
That's a great question. The drug court, they have not come up with standards under the ABA guidelines. So that, and part of that, there's a lot of variation from drug court to drug court. You can have a wide variety of the number of participants and how often they are in court and meet the judge. And so I think it was probably hard to get a handle on those numbers.
Adam, do you do parental? Do you know what is it kind of the same thing?
There are not solid standards that they've done around parental representation case numbers. So there's discussions. The ABA has some recommendations that I haven't seen, but they're not based on the kind of study evaluation that was just done recently on the adult side. So nothing is solid.
Thanks. Sorry, I wasn't able to find it, but that makes sense.
But that's crucially important is the point. You can also
Salt Lake County, we have renewal requests. They did request so back to what Chair Kamala was talking about with the some of those federal funds that will be expiring. They highlighted that with the parental defense social worker that is currently working with Locken, who is the child welfare contract holder for Salt Lake County. So they were bringing that, highlighting that for us, that contract will be expiring at the beginning of the year. And again, to some of the previous comments that Rich and Pam had brought up, we are currently funding attorneys at LDA and at UGDA at the levels that they were originally granted in several years ago. And you can see that those are very far from the keeping up with the current market rate there. Any questions on or comments on Salt Lake?
I don't see any. Thank you.
With the Sevier, Wayne, and San Pete regional project, mostly renewals, they were requesting a social worker that normally we would be happy to fund. That would be a tier 4 request. However, with the budget constraints, we don't feel that we could recommend that this year.
Yeah, you know what? I had that group to review, and I noticed that, and I was glad that they were interested, and I'm still really glad they're interested. Hopefully in the future. Good idea.
And then, in addition to that, they did request some compensation increases for some of their contract holders in Sanpete County. Tooele and Uinta, no new requests. These are all renewals. Utah County requested mostly renewals. They did request 2 new attorneys. They're getting a new judge, a new judge position in Utah County, and so that would be a juvenile court judge, and so they are requesting 2 additional attorneys to be able to staff that appropriately. That would be a higher priority. That'd be a tier 3 request. But again, however, we don't have the budget to fulfill that. And then finally, I believe, we still have Weber. We have Washington County mostly requests. They were requesting some additional funding for a social worker, as well as an additional appellate attorney contract.
Yeah, I reviewed them too, so I was also glad to see their interest in the social worker.
And I think, word's kind of getting out amongst some of the other counties who have received those and just seen how effectively they work and how they can help supplement the work that the attorneys are doing and do work that the attorneys don't know how to do.
Yeah, you know what? I'm looking right now at what the requester wrote, and I loved it. It just says, speaking with other managing defenders, they are proving to be these social workers. They are proving to be a valuable resource for the attorneys and clients. They have a skill set and training that attorneys usually do not have, which can be very helpful in working with clients and families who have varying social needs. So nice to read that. Was someone else trying to say something? Did I not get somebody, Matt? Maybe not. Okay.
And then Weber was all renewals. These last 2 requests, these are the tier 2 requests that I mentioned earlier. So Grand County, they funded their managing defender for a 6-month term, and that contract would end July 1st. And since they had brought her on, so that is Chris Rogers, and kind of going back to Wally's original kickoff question, what can a managing defender do? What are they doing? She has taken that system, that county, and really transformed it. It was, they didn't have any contracts in place. The judges were just appointing attorneys that they hoped were available. The attorneys were charging the county whatever they felt was appropriate. And beyond that, the representation was all over the place. And so Chris was able to get in there, get some contracts in place, and not only take care of that administrative piece, but then she really mentored one of the younger attorneys who had the public defense contract and set some expectations, took him to the jail, like set up a schedule saying, all right, we're going to go to the jail the day before court and see all your clients. And so she really walked him through it. And I think he had been practicing for a few years, but just never had that mentor experience. And she reports that when she first came in, the judge in that district was very, didn't have a terribly high opinion of the work being done, but now has come to really trust and value that attorney and the work that's being done. So that is really one of the bright spots in the state as far as the impact a good managing defender can have. So we are requesting or recommending that contract be continued. And then finally, Summit County has submitted a grant application. They have not been participating in the grant program for a number of years. I think they were early on, but then fell out. they've made a few different requests. However, the ones that we are recommending, they currently have one of their district court attorneys, and they're requesting some additional funding for him to assume some managing defender responsibility. It's a relatively modest amount of $15,000 for him to do that. And then they are requesting a administrative assistant to help with some of the grant reporting and data collection and reporting back to the IDC. And that would be a $35,000 grant request. And so that being a tier 2 item, we are recommending that be funded as well.
Okay.
Matt, can you tell us, well, here, I guess you're going to explain to us, if we were to approve all of the staff recommendations for grants, how much money is left over? Is there any money left over? Or are we spending every red cent?
We would have over $500,000 left in non-lapsing funds. So we would have a cushion there for the future.
So, for example, with Utah County, where there's a new judge, and they've asked for 2 more attorneys to service that judge because otherwise I assume then their staff would be taxed, and it would be much more difficult for them to handle their caseloads. But maybe it wouldn't. Maybe the caseload isn't really changing just because there's another judge. I don't know. How does that play out?
Yeah, I think the difficulty is, especially in a bigger county like Utah County, is that when you bring a judge in, that judge will have court just about every day. And so I think that's part of the difficulty, is just scheduling the attorneys that you do have to cover those courts. That's it was part of the request coming from Utah County. I guess it remains to be seen if there's a way that they can rearrange schedules and have coverage with the people that they do have. I don't know if Adam or Pam might have some more insight, since it's a juvenile court judge who's coming online.
And their request is for $157,000 per lawyer.
Yes, I can go back. It was around, the total request was over $300,000, if I recall.
Yeah, I think it was 157 times 2.
Yeah.
So what's your view, or what is the staff position on using some of the extra $500,000 that would be left over to try to satisfy some of these different requests?
I can say we went as far as we were comfortable going in making these recommendations. It was a stretch, and it's I would not feel comfortable going further than what we're recommending.
That's a great question and helpful answer. Rich.
No, actually, Wally, in answer to your question, when there's a new judge, it creates what I would argue is a kind of scheduling nightmares, because you've got to have lawyers that can staff that court. And so when we have a new judge that comes online, and we have a new judge in Salt Lake County, we have to figure out a way to get 3 lawyers that we can assign to that court, a minimum of 3 that we can put in that court, just for scheduling issues. You know what those law and motion calendars, it may be a little different in juvenile court, but our law and motion calendars in Salt Lake County are Monday and Friday. And if you add another calendar on Friday, we just need bodies to put in the court. It's the reality of it. So that's the challenge of that, for sure. Hey, Matt, I do have a question about the managing lawyer in Summit County, and I've got to leave in about 2 minutes. But when we have traditionally paid for managers who, in compliance with the statute, make attempts to regionalize the representation, has Summit County made any effort to kind of regionalize? I know they're paying a lot of that salary on their own, but what have they done to try to regionalize their use of a managing defender, if anything?
Well, we do give preference towards regionalization per the statute, but I don't think regionalization is a bar from from a system coming on to the grant program. For example, we have, well, Uinta might not be the best example, but that is a standalone region. We have successfully, though, the regional, there's the systems that are standalone. We do work, and we could work once Summit is online to get them to regionalize with some of their neighbors. But as far as regionalization efforts on behalf of them up until this point, I am unaware of any efforts that they've made to regionalize it. I know that Salt Lake County has reached out to Summit County in the past to try and coordinate that, and was not what totally received, Summit was not receptive to those efforts. So I acknowledge that that history there.
Thanks. Hey, Matt, I got to run. Hopefully I'll be back.
Okay. Say hi to Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Rich.
So I did break down the recommendations to having the two options, one with and one without the reallocations. So the top item there with the 7.4, that would be if the commission followed our recommendations, but voted not to include those reallocations, which it sounds like the consensus is pretty clear in that direction. The second option would be if it were to include or to approve of those reallocations. And of course, you could do none of the above or anything else that you saw fit to do as the decision makers here.
Yeah, any other ideas or questions? This great presentation, pretty straightforward for me. I'm not seeing anything in the chat or any questions or anybody, having something else. Oh, Pam, there you go.
Yeah, no, sorry. I don't know. I'm still just struggling with what to do with the managing defender stuff. I mean, I don't know. I'm like, knowing that we're having some of these issues, I know maybe it's just that we need to have like a really strong plan working with the managing defenders about how to help provide them the support and stuff like that they need to do stuff or whatever. But I'm just struggling with how do we address that while we're still also being asked to increase it, if that makes sense, like increase the capacity of it, but yet we still have like work to do in making it an effective use. Does that make sense?
Matt, is that for you?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was for me or for the group.
It's really like for anyone. It's just me thinking
rhetorical.
Like,
yeah.
I'm just,
yeah.
I mean, and it's not that, again, it's not that any of us don't want everybody to have all the resources. We do. It's just, to me, I'm just, where we know we've identified some problems. I'm just wondering if like in adding to that capacity and not knowing if, like, is it fixable? Is it not fixable? Is it still really like a super, I don't know. But I'm like, oh, the timing on it's just the worst.
Oh, yeah. And Michael Zimmerman, I don't understand the question. What would be the alternative, Pam? And then after that, I see Michael Drexel's hand up.
Well, I'll just chime in really fast, Justice Zimmerman. I guess my question is like, we have this report saying that the managing defenders aren't really feeling like they're capable of managing, and we need to address that and fix all of those things. And then we're being asked to like support new funds for managing defenders. And I feel like, do we have a plan in place to address the problem that's been identified? Like, I don't know if it's a good idea to increase capacity of managing defenders until we've actually addressed how to make them effective managers. Because that's what the report says.
And was the GALT report, was that unique to Utah or was that everywhere, Matt?
Utah assessment that was done and focusing specifically on the youth defense system in Utah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I see, thank you, Pam, for clarifying. I understand what you're saying. Michael, I think your hand's next.
Thanks. I just put a link to the report from last month so that people can take a look at it if they want. It's in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm with Pam on the concerns and others who have shared concerns. We have, I think, 3 and maybe more kind of initiatives that are being explored with IDC, the funding that the legislature has made available to the IDC to allocate. One of them is the managing defender position and what benefit it brings to the system, and whether or not that benefit is, as they say, the juice is worth the squeeze. It seems like in some instances there's good indication that it is when you look at the way in which local government entities have increased funding for compensation that doesn't involve IDC funding. That's a good sign that somebody is at the helm and somebody is able to articulate at a system level that there's a need that needs to be addressed. But there may be other things that we want to see happening in that managing defender space. The other 2 that come to my mind are the social worker initiative and the kind of prosecutorial speciality that Matt mentioned a little bit related to Davis County and some other counties that have, like serious felony type prosecutorial resources, some of which are commission funded, that allow for, anyway, we all know what that allows for. But I don't know that it's clear to any of us as a commission, at least not me as a commissioner, that some of these initiatives are necessarily yielding the best possible result with the money being used. And there's some disparity, I think, around the state into how local government entities have been able to tap into IDC dollars to fulfill these purposes. For instance, on the applications that I received, and I'm actually glad Casey is here and on the commission, because the managing defender position in Carbon Price is 84% funded by IDC dollars. It equates to about $145,000. So total compensation ends up being about $172,000. And it looks like, at least as articulated in the materials I reviewed, it's a full-time managing defender position in addition to 10 hours or so a week in district court and 10 hours or so a week in other, which is like drug court, mental health type issues. And so it looks like it's a 60-hour-a-week gig between Carbon and Price, at least as articulated in the materials. Meanwhile, when you look at like the managing defender position in Wasatch Miller Juab, it's about $120,000 for a full-time managing defender position. And so trying to come to terms with why the managing defender positions would be so differently funded in areas of the state that are kind of similar in many ways. It's not like it's a rural and urban disparity or distinction. Sussing out some of these questions: how are managing defenders being used? Are they being compensated in a way that is objectively understandable, that aligns with caseloads or responsibilities? Or have certain entities been able to tap into more dollars in certain ways, and then we're going to continue to just fund these and re-up previous allocations? A lot of unanswered questions in my mind, and so it's nice to have an opportunity to discuss with you all whether we want to formalize some inquiry into how to better wrap our minds around what benefit the value of these dollars is bringing to the local entities as they try and meet those defense needs.
Thank you, Michael. Casey.
This is super helpful for me to understand some of the disparities and some of what's happening across the state in the way that different people are managing. I can only speak for Carbon County and how our managing defender has been incredibly helpful in looking at caseloads, in managing. We did have one attorney that there was some concern with, that the judges, and not only the judges but also the prosecutors, had come forward and said this individual is not cutting it. And so between our managing partner and I, we put him on a work plan. We gave him some time to kind of figured out. We gave him some expectations. And he's really stepped up to the plate now that he knows what we're requiring. So for me, it's been really helpful because I don't see a lot of that stuff. So having a managing partner and having this responsibility as a commissioner to provide this service, it was very helpful for me. Now, I can't speak to the wage disparities from one county to another and the caseloads that this is helpful for me to understand that side of it.
Thank you. Yeah, and just a couple thoughts from me. I think that Davis County back in the day, might have been around 2014, someone asked Todd Utzinger if he would become the managing defender, and he agreed to do that. But I think up until very much more recent years, maybe only the last couple years, like he still had a caseload, right, Matt? Yeah. And, just a smaller one, I guess, but he likes to be in court. I remember him saying one time, why would I have gone into this if I didn't like it? He likes to do that work. And so, been a real change for him to give that up, and especially with the requirements of IDC and just really, doing even more, I guess, as a managing defender. So I know, and then the other little thing, I remember when we did when we all came together in Rich's place and we had that big time strategic planning going on, remember that? And I remember I've thought it all along the whole time I've been one of these IDC commissioners, but it is very tricky, I think, to I look at all the 29 different counties and all the different ways everyone's been doing it for however long, right? And trying to bring everyone up, and equity is not the same as fairness, which is something it's been drilled in my head for years. Equity is, hopefully bringing everyone up to a good functional level in whatever subject. But fairness is hard to achieve when some jurisdictions have been, putting a good amount of money into it and others just hadn't for however long. And I think the way we kind of talked about that when we did our strategic planning was that as we're able, there would be opportunities to be able to give grants toward innovations. So some of these more developed systems perhaps would be able to, have the opportunity to receive some money to help them do some other things that they haven't already been paying for. Hopefully what I'm saying is understandable.
Well,
Yeah.
can I mention something? And this is something we probably should have trumpeted a lot earlier, but one of the new things that we've started doing as a staff just in the past maybe 6 months or so, and hats off to Katrina for really doing a lot of the hard work and heavy lifting on this, but we've started a site visit protocol where the objective is once a year, we will go do an on-site visit in every system that we have grants with. And it's not audit's too strong a word, but it's a more collaborative learning exchange of information where we go and we talk to the managing defender, meet their staff, meet their attorneys. We do a review of their financials and make sure that the grant is being used as granted. Try to meet with the local leaders there, the commissioners in that county while we're there. And it's been a really good way to get out and see people where they're at and have that in-person connection, because you might have a group video chat regularly, but you sometimes miss a lot when you just have that hour window to have a conversation. So I hope that's encouraging for the commission to hear that we are doing some outreach here and some some on-site visits. And again, that's something that Katrina, when she took over as the grant manager, really developed and set up a protocol and a schedule to do that. And in fact, we're getting in a car and heading down to Southern Utah. I hear Southern Utah is really great at the end of June. So we're going to go to St. George and Cedar City at the end of the month.
You know, that's just huge. Katrina, kudos. And I feel like the IDC leadership was already moving this direction some anyway, you know, to really work as much as possible with every single system, just getting to know them so well. I mean, another thing that helps, that will help, is just the relationships and them being able to trust you and turn to you. But yeah, there's nothing like being in person. I'm so glad you all are doing that. So I don't know if we have any, you know, better thing to say with Wally's and Pam's question. I don't know. Oh, Casey, you want to say something?
Yeah, good luck in June in St. George. But so are you relating, so if you're finding deficits or problems in those managing defenders or in the systems, are you relating those to the governing body so that they can be addressed? I can't fix what I don't know, and if there are places where we need to have those tough conversations with our managing partners, we're happy to do that, but we need to know if we feel like something's not up to par.
That's a great point, and we do include and invite the commissioners, the county commissioners, to sit in on these meetings. We had one in Davis County, and that was a late last year, I believe, or fall of last year, and Commissioner Kamala was there, and so was one of the other commissioners and the county auditor. I mean, it was a packed house when we had that, and it was a really great discussion too. I mean, that was a lot of good information being shared and some good brainstormings on how to deal with certain issues.
Yeah, you know what, Matt? That was like the very beginning of 24, because remember I had a weird hat on because I was going to go tubing with my son and his kids in town. It was a really great hat I was wearing. But anyway, it was amazing. And I'll tell you, Casey, not only was it, you know, it was still good for me, even though I've done this for a while with IDC. Like, as you know, Casey, we try hard as county commissioners to not be siloed, but the fact is we're so busy that, and we have the law that we can't have two, and in a 3-member commission, we can't even have 2 of us in a lot of things outside of an open and public meeting. And so the fact that IDC, I mean, I was not the one who thought of who should be invited, but somehow IDC thought of all the people who could be invited. And honestly, our auditor was learning more, and my colleague was learning more, and to have everyone in there, it's important to have that finance elected person in there, you know. I would say even I'm in my 6th year of being a county commissioner, and I know for sure that Todd Utzinger in the beginning was very reluctant to start getting grant money from the IDC, because it's been so drilled into us that you can't trust the money ongoing. You don't create expenses that are ongoing, right? But you know, he finally, after a while, decided to start applying. And so you know, just really helpful to have everyone who touches this in the counties be able to come together. Pam?
I was just going to say, I wanted to just be really clear that the concerns that are raised about the managing defenders are not about the people doing the actual work. It's about, and I just think that's important. I wasn't sure in terms of Casey's question. It's really more about, does the system set up a structure so that they have the capacity to do it? It's not a criticism of the actual individuals doing the work. It's more as criticism of can people manage people that are contract people? And then how do you do that? Do we need to change the way that our contracts are written so that it's explicit to the contractor that you answer to this person? Do we need to give the managing defenders additional supports about these are things that you could do to engage with the people that you're managing and things that you can look to do? Like Matt said, their contracts now say that they do yearly evaluations and things like that. But are there other things that we could continue to do? So I think it's more a question of like, how do we address like what seems to be like a system problem, not a person problem?
That's super helpful, Pam. Thank you. And Michael?
Yeah, everything Pam just said. And how do we value the contribution of the managing defender position within a system and from system to system around the state is the only other thing that I would add.
Anyone else?
If I hold on.
Adam, you're muted.
I'll do it on this one.
I just want to come back to Pam's comment too, and I'll tell you that there have been a number of times in the last couple of weeks where it's been obvious that managing defenders, whether they have a definite structure or definite rules or not, they have been in contact with the governing body or with the court on behalf of one of the attorneys they're working with. I had one today from the managing defender in Grand County on a pretty important issue, and she's connected to everybody down there. So it's working. It needs to be better. It is definitely something we're seeing positive benefits from. This discussion from all of you on the commission is really important because it really gives me plenty to think about and work on the juvenile court side. But there's some really strong things going on, actually just by existing, I would say. But there's some people who can do more and people who will do more.
Thanks, Adam. Okay. All right. Where do you want to go next, Matt?
The presentation's done, so I think it's the ball is in the commission's court as far as how they want to handle the grant applications and what they want to approve.
Okay. So the tier 1 and 2 without reallocations is that 7.4 million, and then tier 1 and 2 with reallocations. And so that was the big question we discussed, right? I think everybody's fine to not reallocate, if I understood. Okay. So, and then I haven't heard anyone come up with any different or possibly better. So, if commissioners are comfortable and ready, I think we still have a quorum, and I could take a motion.
Do we need to go through each county's request individually?
I don't think so, Matt. Do we? I don't think so.
No, I think the way that I have it broken up, and unless you want to make any adjustments from those two options that incorporate the staff recommendations, if you want to make any tweaks, I think we would need to go through that and vote on those changes individually. Otherwise, you can vote for one of the two options that I put up there.
And Justice Zimmerman has put a motion in the chat. He says, I move to accept the recommendations. So that's a motion.
And I understand that motion to be the tier 1 and 2 without reallocation. So the $7.4 million first, and Justice Zimmerman says yes. I would second that motion, and I would say my seconding the motion is because of the high degree of confidence of the amount of work that staff has put in on this, and how pleased I am as a commissioner that you've done all of the lifting to put this in a place where I feel like it's the right path forward. So thank you for all of your work as staff.
Yes, I agree totally. Okay, very good. So there is a motion and a second to accept the tier 1 and 2 without the real allocations for $7,400,489.36, which leaves still that 500,000 of, what did you call that, Matt? Just kind of the cushion. Yeah. And I'm glad you talked about how important you feel like that cushion is. Okay, so any other discussion to the motion? All right, let's go
It's
ahead.
nice to see Senator Weiler just joined on as well, and maybe it would be helpful if Senator, if you have any questions about what we're voting on, so that we can explain where we are in the meeting before we take a vote.
Yeah, Senator Weiler's joined, and also Mary has just been able to join in.
Oh yeah, Mary's here as well.
Yeah.
Yes, hello.
Great timing.
It's almost like we work at the same firm or something.
Wow, great.
I don't have any questions. I'm gonna vote aye. I understand the cushion and I trust our staff, and I'm sorry I was late to the meeting.
Glad you could join, and you too, Mary. Thank you both.
Thank you, and I am going to vote aye. I have reviewed the materials and I trust our staff and I understand the cushion, and so I'm there. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, very good. It is pretty straightforward, so I'm not sure we need a roll call vote. So let's just go ahead, and we have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor? Oh, and we have Rich Morrow back. Wow, what a group. Good timing, everyone. So everyone who would like to vote for this, please say aye.
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 And Madam Chair, I will abstain from Salt Lake County and Weaver County on those particular votes because of potential conflicts.
Yeah. And good point. I'll be, of course, abstaining from Davis, and Commissioner Hopes from Carbon. So it makes sense.
It looks like Michael Zimmerman voted aye in the comments.
Oh, good. Yes, thank you so much. He's having problems with his sound today. Very good. Okay, well.
Lorraine,
okay.
sorry. Can I just also, I should say, I should abstain. I think I'm doing this right. I should abstain from Salt Lake, Carbon, and Washington.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Katrina, probably, we can assume that where people have a conflict of interest for sure, but thankfully we've got several people over and above our minimum quorum. So that's good. All right, very good. So is there anyone opposed to the motion? Say nay. Okay, there is no one. It is unanimous. Pretty straightforward. I mean, not only is it great work, but we don't have enough money. So there you go. Makes some things a little bit, sadly, easier. Sadly.
I think it would be helpful if I could make a suggestion.
Yes.
If we could maybe have staff or Matt or somebody, not me, draft up a little memo of what we wanted to fund but couldn't. And I could share that with legislative leadership and say, I know we had a tight budget, but this was, the impact it had on indigent defense. And I'm hoping that next year, next session, we can get some more money. But I think if we could show exactly which programs we would like to have funded but couldn't, and how many people that's affecting and what counties that's affecting, that would be my suggestion.
I love that. That's a great idea, Senator Weiler. And, we're really counting on you, Representative Clancy, also newer to the House. You're already carrying some clout. And so we have a lot of hopes and dreams for what you're going to do in that House to help everybody understand this work. And this, sometimes I laugh and cry at the same time. Like, this is a state agency. Let's please fund the state agency. That would be really great.
So neither Tyler nor I are on, executive appropriations, but we both can whisper in people's ears at least and let them know that this is affecting people. And it's not just it's just not a pie in the sky impact. It's a legitimate impact.
Truly. Yes. Thank you. And wait, we know you do that many years. It hasn't looked great. And then somehow you and others, somehow.
Except for this year.
Yeah, this year. This is, tricky this year. But I'm glad. I mean, it's so true. Both Matt and Adam and others are there, all the time trying to help educate people. And so when you legislators help with that, I think it goes a long way. Very long way.
Commissioner, Adam would like to make a comment as well.
Adam.
Thank you. Thanks, Representative. This came from Katrina, who's carefully watching it. No, I'm kidding. What I wanted to point out as we go through this, and I think everybody does see it, especially from just the recent comments. In spending this money, with having the 500,000 left of non-lapsing, we are spending all of the money that we have. We're holding that cushion over time, over the last few years. Since the beginning, we built up non-lapsing funds. We're really pushing as far as we can to be safe at this point. So this is what we have for next year unless we lose additional money in appropriation. So I think we all get that, but that is a good reason to make the case to the legislature about when we need more.
Yeah. Yeah, great. And I think the IDC is working hard on that. UAC and the league are good partners. So hopefully we can, now that this work is over, we can move to really working hard, having everybody helping educate and advocate. So there's a few things in the chat. Very nice work by Matt and staff from Justice Zimmerman and Pam agreed. Great job to Matt, Adam's staff. This is way more fun when there's more money to support new momentum. Yep. Wally, I think we should tighten up what we expect from our managers. And then, yeah, and agreed by staff. And yeah, thank you. Great interaction and work with commissioners today. Appreciate every one of you. So there is still another item here to cover on the agenda, aggravated murder defense fund update. Matt.
Okay, so the statute transferring administration of that fund to the IDC is in effect. And so we have just about tied up the process for having a panel of Rule 8 qualified attorneys under contract. They're just waiting for signatures at this point. And we have had our first application from a county who is not currently a member of the fund. Utah County has reached out and they passed a resolution requesting to be allowed to be part of the fund. Under the statute, the county commission has to pass a resolution and an incoming county has to pay a certain assessment based on their population and their tax base, and an incoming county has to pay for not only the current year's assessment, but the prior 2 years assessment. So Utah County Commission approved that yesterday, and they have sent that to me. I can distribute that as well, but they would be adding, with that 3-year assessment, essentially they would be adding $1 million into the fund for that. Now they are particularly eager to join the fund because their county attorney has been filing a lot of capital cases, and that case recently where the police officer, the trooper was killed, that is a capital case, and they're likely going to seek the death penalty on that. So I think that's a big part of their desire to join the fund. Under the statute, the Office of Indigent Defense Services is allowed or required really to come up with policies and procedures for this program. I do have some concerns that with the Utah County coming into this program, and with the that county attorney filing a lot of aggravated murder charges, that it would be a strain on the fund. Since he has been elected, and this was part of his campaign, was that he would kind of reverse course from what the prior county attorney was doing. But since he was elected, there have been 19, I believe, murder cases filed in Utah County, and of those, 9 have been filed as aggravated murders. So that's a lot of death penalty cases to handle at once. And so I think that there is a need for us to develop some guardrails so that it doesn't overwhelm or consume the fund, and because that's not what it was intended for one county to use up all those resources.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a new part of the Utah Office of Indigent Defense responsibility, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And so,
Matt, who did you approve for the aggravated murder contract?
That is, I don't know that that's public just yet. Unfortunately, and Wally is privy to all of this just because he was on the panel that was reviewing some of those, but those are still out for signature. I suppose well, I don't, I can fill you in when we're done, but this being a
That's
public
fine.
meeting,
That's fine.
I don't know that I could announce that just yet.
thank you. Casey?
I guess it would be helpful for me, because I believe Carbon County is part of that fund. I believe we've drawn from it once, maybe twice since I've been a commissioner, which is great because we're not having those capital cases. But it would be valuable for us to know what counties are part of that, how much is in the fund, and how much goes out every year, kind of an average, like maybe a 5 or a 10-year average, so we can kind of get an estimate of what that looks like on an annual basis.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me share a document with you here. It doesn't have the answer to all your questions, but it does have a list of the participating counties and what their annual assessment is. So let me pull that up for you now.
And I think you said the assessment is population based. I mean, almost moving forward, I wonder if it could also be a factor of like how many times and what cost has your county used it. But anyway.
If I remember right, there's about $2.7 million in that fund currently.
Okay.
So here are the list of the participating counties. Utah County is highlighted, and this last column here would be the annual assessment for each county. So you can see that the Davis County participates, so that's probably the other larger county, but then everybody else is a pretty rural county.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay, so is that the amount then that Utah County is going to be assessed to join? And do they automatically get to join, or is it a question if they're able to join? Or?
That is, yeah, that's up to the commission to decide whether they join or not. If the commission would like additional information before making that decision, I can certainly gather that, and I'm happy to do that, just given the request here.
How soon do we need to answer this, Matt?
Well, as I mentioned, that case, I think, is kind of driving their timeline, and I believe they have an appearance or a court hearing sometime this month. So they were hoping to get counsel appointed by then, but I think we need to be deliberate about this too.
Mm.
What's the average cost of providing capital defense? I get it. They're all going to be different based on the experts and everything, but there's got to be kind of a ballpark, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a range depending on what happens with the case. Some of them, they might sell relatively quickly. The existing contracts are capped per case. They are capped at about it's under 300,000, and that includes investigations and attorney's fees and mitigation.
Rich.
Would they be eligible if they paid the back fees? Would they be eligible for appointment on a case that's occurred already? Or would it be going forward? I mean, those charges have been filed already. I applaud them obviously for trying to do something about it, but I'm just wondering if that case is a potential bank breaker too, because the caps you're talking about, Matt, are essentially soft caps that can be exceeded for good cause. And I'm sure you're likely to see some exceeding of caps in that case.
Hmm.
The statute is not that specific as far as the timing of a county entering and when they become eligible and for what case. So I think those are some policies that we need to put in place.
Well, and Salt Lake is not on there, and I believe Salt Lake is self-insured, right? In various ways, maybe. I mean, yeah, I guess these are just some, without thinking about it very long, I just am thinking, gosh, how can a county come on in when, they've not been interested in being part of this before, and now they have an elected person who's like dramatically and even in a campaign saying, well, I'm going to be dramatically different. I don't know if they needed to become dramatically different, or if it's just an elected person's idea of what he wants to do, or she. It just seems like, just like insurance, when normally if you're somebody who crashes your car a lot, your insurance is high, right? And so per capita might not be the only thing to consider in a formula. If there's a different jurisdictions, and particularly one who now suddenly wants to join. These are just some of my kind of raw thoughts as we counties look at each other.
Well, Madam Chair, to your point, first of all, our office does the majority of those cases in Salt Lake County. So there is, you could argue, and I don't know if this is true or not, but you could argue there's sort of a natural restriction in terms of the ability to have too many of those cases in an individual county. When you're an elected official, I mean, you've really talked about, in many ways, a broader discussion about the politics of the death penalty and how it should be applied and when it should be applied. And you also are talking about what I've noticed, and I was an original member of that commission that was formed in 1998 with Mel Wilson, who was actually the Davis County attorney at the time, and Gary McKean and Ken Brown and came up with a lot of the contracts and everything else. And this has been an ongoing debate since then. What does it look like, and how do you prosecute? And do we have a veto power over any of that? And of course, the answers to that are probably not. We're not the elected county attorney. But yet at the same time, you could argue that this is an incentive to continue to file these cases, because the immediate impact is felt through an insurance policy that the county pays for, and they don't feel the full brunt of that. And so there's a potential for any one of these cases to be filed as an aggravated murder. I don't know, we've never reached a good answer to that and how to address that or combat that. And maybe that's something that we may need to take on in the future. I don't know, but those are the realities of how this process works. He could potentially file every single murder case as an aggravated murder case, and this fund would be on the hook for paying for all of that, well beyond what their yearly assessment or allotment may be.
Yes, well said. Michael Zimmerman had to leave, and so did Wally, but Michael said this comment: it appears that there needs to be some evaluation of the formula for awarding funds. He asked, is this in statute or is it set by the IDC?
The formula itself is in statute, the annual assessments in statute, but if we want to establish any policies that puts any kind of limits on how much a given county can dip into the fund for a given year, then I think that the statute allows for something like that.
Yeah, other thoughts by commissioners? I think this is a little difficult to figure out.
I kind of echo some of the prior sentiments. It kind of feels like Utah County wants to buy insurance, you know, right after they crash the car. And so I don't know, you know, what authority we have to either say no or to say, well, we're going to charge you more because of your past driving record. But I think we definitely need to, you know, find out so that the commissioners can make an informed decision.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it may be worth pumping the brakes to continue the car metaphor, just so that we have those policies in place, so that to maybe if so that Utah County knows what they are actually eligible for going forward, and don't feel like the rules of the game have changed after they have joined and paid an assessment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And let me point out, and let me, first of all, in the interest of full disclosure, indicate I am one of the applicants for one of the contracts for aggravated murder defense in the state of Utah. And in the interest of full disclosure, let me indicate I've taken a number of cases as aggravated murder defense cases under the paradigm of the system that existed before for the last several years, before May 1st of this year. And I just want to make everyone aware there are ethical obligations for attorneys who are defending individuals charged with aggravated murder, which are extreme obligations above and beyond what are usually maybe required of criminal defense work. Obligations of communication with the client, obligations to commence under standards that are promulgated by the American Bar Association and so forth. There are obligations to commence investigations immediately, mitigation investigations immediately, to engage experts immediately, to begin work on the case immediately to make sure that evidence is preserved, etc. And then to continue with that level of defense through the entirety of the case that may last for years. So from listening to this conversation, what I see the potential for is a buildup of yet again a defense attorney being caught between a prosecutor who wishes to be aggressive with an aggravated murder prosecution and a source of funding that does not wish to fund the defense attorney to work to the extent that the attorney's ethical obligations require. I would just point out that if a case is filed this year and taken on this year, that case may not go to trial until 2026 or 2027, and will be 3 funding years down the road. And at some point, you have attorneys who are caught between a funding agency that won't fund and a prosecution that won't back down or won't back down enough. And that creates ethical conflicts and potentials for the defendant to have appellate claims and habeas corpus claims down the line that the defendant did not receive effective assistance of counsel. So there are many complicating factors to all of this. And I can indicate that attorneys who've been taking death penalty cases in Utah for years are frequently left holding the bag on funding on those cases. Their investigators are left holding the bag sometimes. It's when things change from year to year. So I just want to make everyone aware of those issues as well.
That's super helpful, Mary. Well, it sounds like we're probably not going to come to a decision today, Matt. This is kind of big.
I think that's wise.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to just kind of work on it and you can look at the record of everybody who's paying in and how much it's been used and kind of use, try to figure out how do you work with a brand new member who's got an aggressive philosophy and an elected official, and then think about, elected officials come and go. So just trying to figure that out is also tricky.
Yeah, I'll gather some more information and let them know that we have some more questions, that the commission has more questions before feeling comfortable to vote on this, and we can revisit it at a future commission meeting.
And did everyone get a chance to say what they wanted to say? Any other feedback or thoughts for Matt?
Matt, let me just toss out this one scenario. For example, you have an attorney on a hypothetical capital murder case, not anyone in particular that's out there. And the case is filed in 2024, and you have an attorney who embarks down a path of defense with certain guarantees of funding. What if the county, there are multiple issues that we probably need to address, but what if the county does this for a couple of years and then pulls out of the program and the case isn't resolved yet? What if this case is held as an aggravated murder case until the eve of trial, and then the county says on the last day, well, we're not going to we've decided not to seek the death penalty. Which means the defense is going to lose one of two attorneys who've been preparing for that trial up until that point, etc. There are so many issues with this arena.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but I think one of the changes in the contract from the previous fund was that if death was taken off the table, then the pay goes down, and there are certain other changes that happen. In my mind, life without parole, spending the rest of your life maybe under solitary confinement or in a high security portion of the prison is not too far from capital punishment. And so with the contracts that we have out for bid right now, it doesn't distinguish whether death's been taken off the table. I think most attorneys would agree that you're going to be working just as hard with an LWOP as you would. Well, maybe no, death is death. Death is different, right?
Yes.
But LWOP is not a life sentence.
No.
Wow, thank you. And Casey, his question in the chat, is this document that is currently showing up on the screen something that you can share with us? Yeah, that'd be
Absolutely.
great.
I can put it in the chat, or if you prefer me to email it to you when we're done, either way.
Yeah, why don't you email it, Matt, and then everyone will get it, even if they had to leave early. That would be great. Yeah, good question. Yeah, interestingly, and Commissioner Hopes would find this interesting, I think, but even though I have been the one to work with our criminal justice system among the 3-member commission, Commissioner Elliott has been the representative member for this particular pot of money. I don't know if they've had meetings over time. Anyway, yeah, I'm just bringing that as a point of interest, kind of curious. Okay, yeah, everyone, great discussion. There's a lot to that agenda item, Matt. So good luck with that for us. A little less cut and dry of years of grant experience. Yeah. Okay, the last thing is just public comment. I don't think there's anything else left in the chat. I don't see any hands. I don't know that we have a member of the public, but is there anyone here to speak as a member of the public? Right, seeing none. I was just looking at whether we have a meeting on the calendar for July. I know we have a pattern to our meetings, but I don't know that we have, what does it look like, Matt, for July? Don't see that we have a meeting on the calendar for July. So maybe it's a little longer before we meet again. Or you'll just let us know.
Yeah, if you did, it would be the third Thursday.
18th.
July. Oh, okay, there is one on the calendar. So July 18th is on the calendar, but Matt's really good and his team to see what they have for us. I don't know, maybe with this agenda item, we might be meeting in July, huh? To be able to bring it up again and get all the information from you and have more discussion. Yeah, that'll be my guess. So hopefully that date will work for people. And with that, you have a small gift of time because it's only 3:53, not 4 o'clock. Thanks, everyone. What a great meeting. Appreciate every single one of you. See ya.
Everyone.
Thank you.